Welcome to On Texas Football. Time for rapid reactions. Longhorns lose a heartbreaker 28-14 to Ohio State, but Texas was knocking on the door last night on the 1 yard line, first and goal, and would have had 4 attempts, but Texas did not make it. Ended up with a 4th down strip sack that Ohio State returns to go up by 28-14 and eventually win. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by CJ Vogel and Gerry Hamilton. This episode of Rapid Reactions are brought to you by our friend Adam Lowy over at the Lowy Law Firm. CJ, you were in the press box last night. Your thoughts overall on this game, just out of the box right now?
Yeah, frustrating, right? It was frustrating. Texas, they moved the ball well on their first 2 drives. They get across midfield. You get the turnover on downs, and you back it up a little bit. You get a sack. You get a penalty. You punt 4 times in a row, and then you're sitting there looking right at halftime saying, okay, we really about to walk into halftime without any points. And on the flip side, defensively, I thought after that first drive, you allow the touchdown, but you back up. You force 4 straight punts, and that's exactly what you want. I thought Texas did a very solid job defensively, especially from a game plan perspective. They were not going to let Jeremiah Smith beat them, and that's kind of what I was talking about the entire week. Do not let the best wide receiver in college football beat you deep. They tested him a few times. I thought Andrew McCoop made a few plays there, but to scratch, to claw, to fight, to get to a yard from tying the football game with 2 minutes left, and for it to end the way it did, I think is the most frustrating way that you could look at it. There's no way a toss play should have been called there. There's no way that you don't try to punch it in 3 more times right up the gut. I think after that first jumbo set, that first snap there's a little Oklahoma PTSD from 2023. And, it didn't go that way. But I thought it was a really nasty set of play calls. And obviously, Texas headed to the offseason as a result.
Yeah, headed to the offseason. There's no guarantee Texas would have come back and won that game. By the way, Ohio State would have had 2+ minutes left in the game with the ball. Now, that being said, Will Howard was starting to put the ball in harm's way as well. Gerry, your thoughts on this game, just off the cuff right now, in immediate reaction.
Yeah, I think, look, it's tons of heart on both sides of these players, though, man. I mean, you had major players go down in this game. Matthew Golden fought his way back into the game, made a big play late. So Quinn had to go to somebody other than his go-to guy for much of this game. Sark had to scheme around not having Matthew Golden. That was not in the plan. JT goes down for Ohio State, loads up tape on that ankle. They get him back in the game. All these guys showed a ton of fight in this game. They let their emotions get a little best of them. 3 different plays, 2 by Ohio State, maybe 1 on gun around. People say, it's chippy, but, it is what it is. But the game carried high emotion and great physicality. I thought there were big-time individual plays. And I think, look, games within the games happen, but those are the things you can't predict. Who's going to go down with an injury? How's that going to change how coach calls plays? How a defense performs rushing the passer in the case of Ohio State? But the one thing you do go back to in this game of football is the way the game ended. Ohio State had the ball inside the 5 and ran that dude into the end zone. And Texas comes right back and has the same opportunity and toss sweeps the season away. You have to be able to punch it in from the 1. That's the bottom line. And Ohio State did that when the chips were on the table, and Texas did not. And Sark's going to have to evolve. He's done a really good job at Texas, but this roster is nearing a finished product in terms of recruiting. But now Sark has to continue to evolve as a coach. You have to be able to have a physicality downhill in your run game. Not all the time, but when the game's on the line, you have to be able to punch that ball in because the other team just did it to you and they move on.
CJ, last night I thought you had a really bright tweet. You talked about what would have the play call been had CJ Baxter been available to Texas first and goal from the 1. You wouldn't have brought in Jarrett Gibson, probably, right? You probably wouldn't have run a toss sweep on the goal line. At the same time, I thought one of the brighter points of the game was the fight, Gerry, you mentioned, from Texas. Quinn Ewers fought through some adversity, fought through a tough pass rush. He self-sacked a couple times. He was far from perfect, but he played well enough, I think, to give this game a real chance, give Texas a real chance in the game. I would also say great work by the running backs overall. Even though they didn't eat up a bunch of yardage, they were clearly key in the passing game on checkdowns, whether it was Wisner making a key first down or Jaden Blue and his 2 touchdowns. Look, all in all, Gerry, I think you put it right. Texas fought on both sides of the scrimmage, had some key plans for certain pieces. And that's what I want to go to next is really the defense. It's been the story all year. I want to talk about Quinn Ewers and a couple of the big plays as well that went against Texas. But the defense in this game last night really came to play. It looked like it didn't, though. First drive, touchdown. I was like most Texas fans, probably. Oh boy, are they going to go on roller skates against Texas? But Texas's defense stiffened. Pete Kwiatkowski had a plan, and it worked for the most part. I mean, Ohio State is a great offense. They scored 21 points total. Texas could have and should have probably scored at least 21 on its own. CJ, what did you see that they did? They obviously, I don't know if they just put a safety over the top of Jeremiah Smith or what, but the freshman phenom for Ohio State had 1 catch for all of 3 yards.
Yeah, he was totally neutralized. And that 1 catch came behind the line of scrimmage, in which Ohio State made a point in the second half to say, we've got to get you the rock somehow. And it came on a quick little dump down screen right there. But I thought it took a while for the pass rushers to get going in this game. And when they did, you saw how difficult life was for Will Howard. I did think Texas made Ohio State earn everything, maybe aside from that 1 play before halftime. And to me, that was kind of the backbreaker before the backbreaker at the end of the game for the Longhorns. There's no way that should have been something that happens right before halftime when you just score the first touchdown to tie it up. Whatever, we'll get to that. But look, Ohio State only had 1 play over 20 yards in the entire game, aside from that 75-yard touchdown. Texas had 5, right? They created chunk plays much better than Ohio State did throughout the course of a game in which, look, we came into this game saying there isn't an offense in the country playing better than what Ohio State was playing based off of what we had seen against Tennessee and Oregon. So I commend Texas. I thought that they did a really fine job, especially in the third quarter when Texas started to crawl back just again. Obviously, David Benda played like he wasn't ready for his career to end at Texas. Vernon Broughton with a sack. I thought Colin Simmons, look, he was looking at officials a couple times for flags, and I can't blame him after a few of those replays. But the pass rush started to get to Ohio State, and the big play for them wasn't there, which is exactly what I was hoping Texas would do defensively. Just 1 play too short.
Gerry, what did you think of the defense overall?
I thought Colin Simmons looked like a great player. It's not just his pass rush and getting home. It's the batting the balls. It's the awareness for the game he's showing. The more he was left on the field in the biggest game of the season. Probably, we'll see what the snaps were, but it may have been the most snaps he's played all year. I mean, it was in the biggest game of the year. So I thought he was great. I thought, I'm going to commend Kenny Baker here. The defensive front, they have performed interior every game this year in some form or fashion. And to CJ's point, look, you're going to crease somebody for an 8-yard, 9-yard run. They have 2 NFL running backs, but nothing came easy for Judkins in this game. Bill Norton made plays, right? I mean, when your role players are becoming better as the season moves along, your coach is doing a damn good job. Let's be real. And he developed that group in a big-time fashion. And then, I'll give credit to PK and Nansen on this. I thought a lot of zone-free releases would become an issue if the pass rush didn't get home. And really, Will Howard missed 1. The first post to Jeremiah Smith, that probably was a touchdown if it's a well-thrown ball, but it wasn't. But outside of that, there weren't a lot of plays to be made. I mean, he had to throw some guys open and take some risks with the football. Benda had a great deep drop on the interception when he tried to force it to Smith. But, they're really good players on both sides of the line of scrimmage here. But Texas did, I think it would be interesting to see what Notre Dame can do. But Texas did, I think, as good a job against Ohio State as anybody I've seen this year all around. But the defensive interior has just continued to perform all season long. It just continued to perform. And Colin Simmons played like a great player. I mean, he played like a future All-Pro.
Yeah, I will say this. I'll add this to that. The secondary, I thought, played overall very well. Obviously, they didn't let Jeremiah Smith get behind him. Emeka Egbuka had a good game. Carnell Tate had good games. They weren't game-changing players for the game last night. They were good players. And, you know, that I felt like they had a good defensive game plan as much as any. All right, I need to say thank you. Then we're going to talk to our sponsor. That's Adam Lowy over at the Lowy Law Firm. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the last 2 minutes of both halves because that really ended up being where the game was decided. Adam Lowy and his group, Lowy Law Firm, have been helping injured Texans for more than 20 years. If you've been injured in a car wreck of any kind, automobile accident, ATV, truck wreck, 18-wheeler, give them a shout. LowyLawFirm.com. They'll offer you a no-strings-attached free consultation. Again, that's LowyLawFirm.com. All right. 2 big plays, really, for the Longhorns during the game last night. The touchdown by Jaden Blue followed quickly by a 75-yard screen pass for a touchdown that should have never happened. That really put Texas on its heels. And Texas should have had all the momentum going to half. They clearly didn't. And then, obviously, first and goal from the 1, you mess up on first down, or don't really mess up on first down. You just get no push. Second down, you try a sweep, and you get yourself behind the sticks. And Quinn Ewers and the offensive line and the receivers couldn't come up with anything from the 7 or 8 yard line. And that's really the game because it ends with a strip sack of sorts by Quinn Ewers' former roommate, Jack Sawyer, up at Ohio State. Those plays kind of encapsulate why Texas lost this football game. Gerry?
Yeah, I mean, look, the screen pass, I mean, it's simulated pressure, right? Colin Simmons dropped. Gilbo, whether that was a late delayed blitz off of simulated pressure or he just didn't read the play. That was just, that was bad all around. Texas didn't maybe take physical enough angles to shut down that play as well behind the play after the catch. They weren't physical enough taking on blocks. And then once Henderson made Makuba miss, he was the fastest player on the field on that play, so he was going to score. The second goal from the 1 is the one that really that one's the toughest one for me in actuality because Texas weathered the storm of the screen. They got to stop to start the third. They claw back. Ohio State as they come scores, and then you have the ball back and you drive it all the way down the field. And the second one outside play, that one just baffles me because, look, Ohio State has the 2 best downhill missile safety tandem in college football. And they had no pass responsibilities on second and goal from the 1. There was no chance Texas was going to block both of those guys. And Caleb Downs was 7 yards behind the line of scrimmage before Texas could try to get that play blocked in reality. That one did not make sense on any level to me. On the first and goal, and look, it's easy for us to sit here and say that, but on first and goal from the 1, if you're going to go with the jumbo package, why do you have Quinn on the field? Just take the quarterback out, direct snap, and have an extra hat. If that's what you're going to run, you've had all season to get prepared for this play. But the second goal from the 1 is the one play in the game that it baffled me because these are the best missile downhill safeties in the country. And you had to block both of them. They didn't have pass responsibilities. You had to block them both. No chance that was going to happen.
CJ, what do you think about not just that play, but also the play to end the first half? Because while I agree with y'all, this game was clearly decided at the end of it because Texas fought back in it. And really, I think it just killed the momentum for Texas to end the first half that way, because I thought that this felt very similar to me of how Texas and Georgia played the SEC championship game, where Georgia just kind of hung around the rim in the first half. Texas had hung around the rim, but Georgia got them in the second half. I felt that's the way it was going, and then boom, 75-yard touchdown. Tough. That was tough to stomach as well. I think there are a couple. In other words, I'm thinking there are a couple plays in this game did not go well for the Longhorns, and that may be the final difference between these two teams.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, the 75-yard screen touchdown, it's tough, because the play call. I mean, I'll have to watch the all 22 or something from the end zone to see whose responsibility was where. But the fact that he was basically untouched is concerning. And I thought Ohio State blocked it well. They got 3 linemen down the field, about 10 yards. Each of them found a man. They did well. They did their job the way that it was supposed to be. Did Texas show all-out effort to get to the guy? I don't know. That's probably debatable. But my biggest issue, and it's been my biggest issue all season, it's the physicality up front in the offensive line for Texas. Texas in the second half had 13 rush attempts for 14 yards. Texas in its final 2 games of the college football playoff had 1 rush attempt of 10 yards or more. You're not winning a national championship with that. No. That's the truth. You're not doing that. And it showed up even in the biggest moment of the game. You need 1 yard to tie the game with 2 minutes left to give your defense another shot to get the ball back and go win a football game. You couldn't do it. You go jumbo again. And this might be a rabbit hole I dive down later on in the year. For whatever reason, rabbit hole hasn't worked at all for Texas. I don't know if it's coaching. I don't know if it's the players in the fence. The bigger you get doesn't mean that you're moving the pile at all. Let's go back to Oklahoma a year ago as well, right? I know that Texas fans like to point at the Tavondre Sweat receiving touchdown against Oklahoma State. That's great. That's the type of talent that you didn't have this year in that jumbo set. It just doesn't show the results. And I hope that next year when Texas has a bigger, more physical, mobile quarterback, it's just a simple QB sneak. Because that's the most underrated 1 yard to gain play that you can call. And Texas, I don't think ever really had success with it with Quinn Ewers. So
no, he's not a guy that's gonna move the pile. He's just not. He's not that kind of build. I could see having done a myriad of other plays other than what they ended up choosing on 2nd and 1. To y'all's point, I do want to comment on this. I'm still going back to that first half play because I'm equally a little torn up about that. And here's why. In the postgame show with Rod Babers and Brian Robeson, you guys both know NFL players, a lot of experience. They said the first thing you think of whenever it's 25 seconds left or 30 seconds left on the clock and the other team's just trying to get it in field goal range, watch the screen and watch the draw. Everybody on the field knows to watch the screen and watch the draw, and Texas did not do that. Yeah. And so they were going to try to they thought they were going to get a screen for 10 or 15 yards. Instead, they housed it. It cost Texas 7 points. Because if Texas plays the third quarter the same way they did, Will Howard is a different quarterback when he's behind or when the game is tight. And I think we saw that last night. Texas was going to put Will Howard a little bit in a vice.
Yep.
And see what he did and make him be perfect. And I think I go back to both of those plays, very difficult for Longhorn fans to stomach. But it is what it is. CJ, you had something
I was just going to say Texas gets the ball back after that touchdown. And what do they do? A draw to Trey Wisner. That's your 10-yard, 12-yard play, the longest of the game, the only in 2 games. And it comes in that situation where they're exactly looking for, hey, get 10, get 12, whatever. But you're not going 75. They executed. Texas did not. And, it was one of the biggest factors of the game.
It's a good way to put it. I want to go next to Quinn Ewers, 23 of 39 in this game, 283, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Pick came late. Took care of the ball until the final 2 minutes of the game, essentially. Took relatively good care of the ball. What did y'all make of his final performance as a Longhorn, Gerry?
I thought after he got settled in, after the Texas offensive line got settled in, and everybody got settled into the game, I thought that may have been Quinn's best game And he's not a twitchy guy. He's not the guy that's going to make people miss in the pocket and dance around and make a play when you don't expect it. So with where his talent level is and as a pocket quarterback, I thought he might have made more plays on the move, the forced move, than he's made at Texas in a game. And he kept more plays alive, especially in the second half, to give the team a chance after they got settled in to that game. And look, he had a Isaiah Bond, dropped the ball that should have been caught. Gunnar Helm, maybe the ball's a little high. Gunnar Helm had two hands on it. Styles made a good play on that. So Ryan Wingo got held, but the ball still went through his hands. So, the receivers didn't really jump up and make plays for him last night in the game. He had to make more plays for his players last night, which has not always been the case. So I thought he played well, considering, look, they're playing against a legitimate defense with 10 or 11 future NFL players on it, and guys that got into him early, and he had to weather the storm and continue to play at a high level. And I thought he played at a relatively high level last night, because look, the strip scoop and score, I don't think he should have ever been put in that position. I think the second down from the one play call put that play in position to happen. It should have never happened.
Fair enough. CJ, you want to add anything on Quinn's performance?
Yeah, I was actually a little surprised there, Gerry. A little bit of praise for Quinn. Look, I thought he played well. I didn't think it was one of his best games ever, but he, to your point, he wasn't getting a whole lot of help, and I say that, look, Matthew Golden gets hurt. We talked about it. At least I did. Coming in this game, this is a game I thought Matthew Golden was going to get 10 to 12 targets. He was going to be the guy that Texas looked to. And when he was off the field, right, there wasn't a lot of movement of the football for the Longhorns. And the movement that did came was the 2 to 3 yard rushes, followed by a check down to one of the running backs that allowed them to move the chains. And then they just did it again and again. It took them 3 plays to get 10 yards, but it worked. The chunk plays weren't there yet. And, I don't know what really ever happened with Isaiah Bond after the Georgia game and the Oklahoma game, but that's a completely different player from what we saw. He's a shell of himself, basically. And that drop kind of encapsulated how frustrating of a second half it was for him, because that was a touchdown waiting to happen every single game was Isaiah Bond. And it came to the point where the staff trusted Ryan Wingo to start over Isaiah Bond against Ohio State in the college football semifinal. So that's kind of where that is as well. But again, I thought Quinn showed heart. That 3rd and 10 where he ran for 9 and 10, whatever, put Texas in a position to go for it on 4th. That's a tough hit. It's back at the crown of the helmet. That's a tough hit that he took there. But to get his team where he needed to go, it's unfortunate that, you couldn't punch it in from the one. That's what's going to be remembered. But again, kind of the story of his career.
All right, we have some final comments here on Rapid Reactions. I want to say thanks again to our sponsor. That is Adam Lowy over at the Lowy Law Firm. If you've been injured in a car wreck, truck wreck, automobile accident of any kind, make sure you reach out to them at loweylawfirm.com. That's loweylawfirm.com. They'll give you a free, no strings attached consultation. Guys, I want to end this Rapid Reaction the right way, I think, and that's to say thank you to the players that made this back-to-back playoff run possible. Yeah. Quinn Ewers, Jaden Blue was part of this back both years. You look at Gunnar Helm, he was second string last year, but big piece of it. Kelvin Banks, Hayden Connor, Jake Majors, DJ Campbell, Cole Hudson. Now Cam Williams it started this year. Barron Sorrell played most of his 4 years at Texas. Vernon Broughton, Alfred Collins, David Benda had a big game last night. Way to go out. Mo Blackwell, Michael Taft, Jade Barron. A lot of Longhorns out there. You add in guys like Andrew Makuba and Matthew Golden this year. Silas Bolden, I thought, had a nice game as well. Juan Davis, don't want to forget him. Young man that stayed through thick and thin. I look at this, and while I think it's too early to say, oh, well, let's talk about next year or the future, I think it's also smart to say, hey, thanks for the ride, because you guys gave Texas fans a hell of a ride and gave it just about everything you had right there. Gerry, you have anything you want to add to that, CJ?
No, I want to echo that. I mean, look, some of the look, we're not playing the game. Obviously, we talking about all this and covering it all from the recruiting process to the finality of these guys' careers. So it's easy for us, and that means we have to be honest that when we don't grade a player higher, position higher, whatnot, that comes with the territory. But at the same time, that doesn't mean we don't want to see all these guys have success, have great success, and have an appreciation for what they've done. To your point, Bobby, because look, they've come a long way from 5-7 in Kansas, scoring 57 in DKR. I mean, that was a real low point for me. I'll say that. And that one game and that one season was a real low point, and you wondered how long it would take to dig out of the hole. And these guys made it happen. And the only way that happens is if you have to believe in the vision of a staff, and it's hard, right? I mean, it's hard with Torrey Becton in the summer. So you really have to put life on hold at times and dig in and just be 100,000% committed to the cause as a team. And that's, of all the things Sark has done at Texas, I think that's the number one thing he's done is he's got all the guys to buy into the cause. And that doesn't mean any locker room's perfect. It's never going to be perfect. But he's done a really dang good job at Texas of getting all the guys on the same page. And that's hard to do in the NIL day and age.
CJ, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I thought about just my quick thoughts afterward. I thought about just talking about Quinn, but I guess I'll do that here. As a member of Quinn and on through and through, I thought this was one moment that, and Texas fans are going to be split. I understand it. It was a rocky road, a roller coaster all the way through. But again, this was a guy who went 25-5 over his last 2 seasons at Texas. When he got the pieces around him, he only lost to Georgia twice. He lost to Washington, he lost to Ohio State, he lost to Oklahoma. He was never upset, right? He was never, in a position where you're sitting around looking at Kansas celebrating at DKR or Iowa State planting a flag on the Longhorn, right? He did his job. And it was never going to be perfect. And to Gerry's point, it's tough to sit here and evaluate guys who have these 5-star ratings and whatnot and come in with the sky high expectations. And he took Texas from a pretty low place. And now you're sitting here back to back top 4 finishes. And I know it's not where you want to be for this season specifically. But I hope that he's remembered as time goes as the guy that brought Texas out of dark place, because you look at the quarterbacks down the road for Texas, and I have a hard time believing that they're going to return to that anytime soon.
I agree with that. I mean, what Texas had before and after is like daylight and dark, in my opinion. And hopefully this group of players, and not just Quinn, and that's what I was getting at. Mm-hmm. This group of players is remembered for doing that and putting themselves second behind the team first, and getting back-to-back national semifinals. It's a tough loss overall. I don't think there's anybody trying to sugarcoat that. Texas losing 28-14, but it was a game that could have been 21-21 with 2.5 minutes left. What could have been? The last thing I'll say is the next time Texas plays for real, these same Ohio State Buckeyes in Columbus, August 30th of this coming year. All right, we've got other stuff coming for you guys today. We've got offensive and defensive grades. We've also got some other shows as well. For CJ and Gerry Hamilton, as well as our producer, Matt Hutchinson, I'm Bobby Burton. This has been Rapid Reactions. Thanks also to Adam Lowy. Hook 'em.